dedicated to empowering you with information
to make positive choices
and be advocates for your overall well-being.
Welcome to The Health View. Welcome to The Health View. I'm Yvonne Dunetz, and today we're going to be talking about the Resilient Nashua Initiative, and my guest is Justin Cates. He's the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Nashua, New Hampshire. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Yvonne.
What is the Resilient Nashua Initiative?
So this is a project that our office started this past year and really focused around shifting the mindset for emergency planning in the community. Rather than being reactive and looking at how we would respond to disasters, instead now we're looking at how we might be able to make better infrastructure investments, build social capital in our neighborhoods, and find a way to leverage the assets of every person in the community to be more resilient to shocks and stresses that we might experience here in the city.
So it's really a proactive initiative.
It is, and it's not to say that our office hasn't been proactive in the past, but really we're looking at it now from an engineering perspective, a societal perspective, looking at community planning, things that are typically outside of the realm of emergency management, but are really essential to ensure that the community is able to withstand some sort of a significant event.
And who's participating in this initiative?
So we've had a number of city departments that have been key participants in this program. Community development has been probably the #1 champion for us just because of all the other work that they do in the city. We've had great resources from our public health division as well, who is involved in emergency preparedness planning, but also trying to build a healthy Nashua. And there have been a number of other city departments from the range of fire, police, pretty much any city department you can imagine has been a participant in this project so far. But it doesn't just stop at the city. We've had involvement from federal agencies, state agencies, community nonprofits, businesses. If you can name it, it probably has been part of the Resilient Nashua Initiative over the past year.
Now, is this initiative just in Nashua, New Hampshire, or is it nationwide?
So this is actually something that the city got an idea from the 100 Resilient Cities program that you've seen across the country, across the globe. Rockefeller Foundation put forth this initiative to try and shift the way that communities, particularly cities, look at ensuring that they're able to withstand shock events, but also things that are stressors to the community, like aging infrastructure or climate change. So we saw that initiative and said, you know, we want to do something very similar to that. Even if we can't be one of those 100 resilient cities, how can the city do something that's very similar and ensure that we're planning for the long term rather than just the short term?
And how can citizens participate in this process?
So we actually have a really innovative tool that's currently up on our website. It's called Co-Urbanize. And so this is a crowdsourcing tool. It really essentially allows our citizens to go on to a map and plot on points about things that they're concerned about or that they'd like to see related to safety and emergency preparedness and resilience here within the community. This is a tool that we'll be keeping up to date over the next couple of months to try and gauge the citizens' interest in emergency preparedness and resilience, but also try and get their input in our community resilience plan that we'll be working to finish up over the next couple of months.
So how would you like to get their input? What can we recommend for them to do that they can provide some input for you?
So the first thing that we want them to do is to go to our website, which is courb.co/resilient. And I'll say that again just to make sure everybody knows it. courb.co/resilient. And if they go straight to that website, a map will show up of the city of Nashua, and there'll be a question that'll be posed up on the website. Currently the question is, what types of hazards have those who live or work in the city experienced over their period of time here in Nashua?
So what would be examples of some hazards that might come up?
So some might have seen flooding in certain areas of the city. Some might have seen fires. They might have seen certain types of events that would have been aging infrastructure or They've seen something that didn't seem like it was a safe situation within the community. And so they can go on and select a location in the city, even to the street level, and select what type of hazard it was. And then from there, they can go on and provide a further description of what it was.
So it's user-friendly. It's easy for them
Very
to provide
intuitive.
their input. And will there be different questions each week where they can go back and provide you other information?
Yeah, so to ensure that we're staying engaged with the community, we're going to change the question up every week. And what this will enable us to do is to get input on our community resilience plan that we're working on. Most times that we're working on a plan, it's very difficult to get citizens to come to a community meeting. So this is a kind of a new approach to try and get them to participate literally from their cell phones or from the computer web browser.
And what is your hope for the end result for this plan?
So the project really is focused around ensuring that we have an up-to-date hazard mitigation plan for the city. And FEMA requires that to be updated every 5 years. But what we've done is we've expanded that plan to include resilience as really a key component of it. And over the past year, we've worked with all of those different partners that we had mentioned to try and identify the things that are most concerning to the city, both in the short term and as well as the long term. And then what are the types of things that the city can do and invest in to try and reduce the risk for those types of events. With the input of citizens, we're able to really ensure that those concerns that citizens might have about everything ranging from storms to aging critical infrastructure can be incorporated into the plan, and we can ensure that we're investing in those types of initiatives.
And how is the plan funded, all that you're doing to arrive at this point?
So we have two primary sources of funding that are working on this project. FEMA, in order to do this hazard mitigation plan, provides a grant to the city, and that grant will help us to fund the mitigation portion of this project. EPA is also helping through a program that they have called Healthy Communities, and that is really focused around ensuring that we're looking at long-term hazards, things that might impact community health. And we've also gotten some support from the National League of Cities, who is actually supporting an initiative that we'll be doing in December, which is our Resilient Nashua Summit.
Tell us about that. What is that going to occur? It's occurring in December, and I believe it's at Revere University.
It is.
Can anyone attend?
Yes, so anybody can attend. They have to register with us. It's a free registration.
And when is that initiative will take place?
It'll be on December 18th.
18th.
In Revere University. And the focus around that event is really to tie together all the work we've done all year, to show all the things that our partners have worked on to build this community resilience plan. And we're going to have great presentations from a number of experts in the field, ranging from Dr. Cameron Wake from UNH, who is going to talk about the Southern New Hampshire Climate Assessment. We've got the Waffle House. If you've ever heard of the Waffle House before, they're a restaurant from the South, but they have probably one of the best emergency preparedness plans for their company, and they'll give us some tips as to how businesses in the city of Nashua can better prepare for types of emergencies. We have a number of presenters that are really focused on different topics, all related to community resilience.
So anyone can attend?
Yes.
And is there a cost to register?
It's absolutely free.
And how do they register?
So they can go to the City of Nashua website, and if they search for the Resilient Nashua Summit, they'll easily be able to get to the registration page.
So it's nashuanh.gov.
That's correct.
And then they would go to what site?
They would just easily search in the search bar for Resilient Nashua Summit.
Very good. So they have the opportunity, if they so choose, to participate in the summit, as well as individually each week to go to that website that you mentioned. Let's repeat that again.
So that website is our Co-Urbanize website, and that is courb.co/resilient.
And that will be an opportunity over the next few weeks where they can give input on different questions that come up each week, so that you gather that in. So if somebody can attend that summit, they can still be involved in a way of giving feedback. So what is planned once this is completed? So you'll have your summit. You've been working over the year now with a number of community organizations to identify hazards.
Yeah, and in addition to identifying identifying those hazards, it's also looking at what things we can do to try and reduce risk for those hazards.
Okay. So has this been a lengthy process this
Oh,
year?
it has been quite a lengthy
And
process.
who have you been meeting with all year long?
So, in addition to the partners that we had talked about earlier, one of the other things that we've done is we've had technical assistance from a number of really important agencies at the federal level that are focused around trying to reduce risk. One of our most significant partners is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They're a federal agency that's really focused around standard development and trying to find ways to enhance building and infrastructure resilience. But they've developed a process that we use to kind of frame out the Resilient Nashua Initiative, which enables us to look at the social institutions within the community, ranging from supermarkets to churches to government. Schools being another great one. And what we did as a group with all those different stakeholders was to look and say, all right, when would we want those facilities to be up and running after some sort of a disaster? How quickly? Because some of them might be different than others. We would probably want the shelters to be opened up as soon as possible, but we might be able to wait a couple of days for the auto repair shops. So we took this huge list of different social institutions within the community, and we developed performance goals for all of those buildings and for the infrastructure that's related to them. Everything from power lines to natural gas to water to wastewater, telecommunications, you name it, it's all part of this assessment.
That's excellent. So it's a thorough
Oh, it's very
integration.
comprehensive,
Yes.
very comprehensive. But what then we did through this framework is we ran a modeling tool that would enable us, based on different types of disasters, to see how all of that infrastructure and all those buildings would actually react to the disaster. And what we call that is the anticipated performance of those structures. So from start to finish, we can see what the community wants to see as a restoration time and what the restoration time really would be.
Okay.
When we look at those gaps, we know the ones that have the largest gap between them, those are the areas where we need to make the investments. So we found some very surprising results, ranging from the importance of supermarkets. People need to be able to go and get groceries and water and all the other things that are essential. And we don't typically think of supermarkets as critical infrastructure, like a hospital or one of those types of locations.
How about pharmacies?
Pharmacies is another one that came up as a really important one, mainly because so many folks rely on pharmaceuticals and same thing. They aren't typically thought of as a critical facility. So this has kind of opened our eyes up to some of the organizations that we need to do more outreach with, but also to bring into our partnership and really work with them on a more frequent basis on emergency planning and continuity planning.
So you were doing this all through 2018. So was it a series of monthly meetings or taking certain topics and looking at it and really crunching down where we are, what we need to do?
It was a mixture of all that, honestly. So we did do monthly meetings. We had a stakeholder group that was about 50 different people across the city, many of the ones that we had mentioned earlier, plus even more.
Okay.
But we also met with subject matter experts. One of the things that we ended up doing, particularly on the utility side, is we had to meet with them individually to talk about how they would restore power after an incident, how they would get natural gas back up and running after an incident. And through each one of those, we also recognize the interdependencies of each of those systems.
Of course.
A water pump station relies on electricity, so we need to make sure that the electricity is going to be restored in order to restore water. And many people don't think of it as this complex network.
It all integrates together.
It really does. And also through this, we also better understand kind of the cascading impacts that might occur during some sort of an incident. If one thing fails, what are the other things that fail beyond it? And it's much more beyond the scope of a typical hazard mitigation plan. And our last plan that we updated was in 2013. This one is going to be much more comprehensive, and I think it's going to be a much better product for the city to really understand how we would withstand the different types of shocks and stresses that we might experience.
So after the summit, you'll come out with a written plan
We will
that
have a
will
written plan.
identify everything and the action items and what needs to be done. And when you say investment, is there a financial investment in order to make it happen?
Yeah, so with any type of infrastructure improvement or social program that we want to implement, there's always an investment. But what we look at is how can that investment be made so that it has many co-benefits.
Okay.
So I think one of the best examples is a transit system. And this is, like I said, this is how it's a different approach to looking at emergency management. So when we look at purchasing equipment and supplies for a disaster, we typically think of it very focused around emergencies. But rather than that, when we look at it from a resilience standpoint and co-benefits, we would look at something like a transit system as, okay, it gets people to workplaces across the city. It also is a great way to reduce harmful emissions because now you've got more people on buses.
Right.
But it also serves as a resource for us to do evacuations during a disaster.
Exactly.
So all of the co-benefits that would exist there make that a much more valuable asset than just individual types of resources that we might use during an emergency.
So you've done all this work up to this point. You're having a summit, which is kind of the culmination of sharing information and gaining more information. What happens when you're completed and what happens in 2019?
So when we're completed, the written plan has to go to the state first,
Okay.
And they have to review it based on certain criteria that FEMA looks at.
Okay.
When they approve it, send it to FEMA, and they do the same thing. They have to approve it as well. When they look at it and decide that it meets the standards that they're looking for, it comes back to the city, and the Board of Aldermen and the mayor will have to approve it officially through the legislative process.
That these are the actions they wish to prioritize and take place within the City of Nashua.
And what it might do is it might give them a roadmap to possible options that they might implement. And the plan doesn't require that we have to implement all of these things. And that's one of the areas where communities will, a lot of times will be reluctant to do a plan like this because they think they're tied in and they have to do everything.
But
and
they can prioritize.
they can prioritize. And in some cases, they might not make a quarter of the different things that we've recommended. Because remember, this plan is to look at how, if it was kind of the best case scenario and we had unlimited dollars, how we would actually make all these improvements. But what it does is it ensures that a collective approach with all those different city departments, community members, nonprofits, businesses, have all sat down and thought about what would make the community more resilient. What happens after the plan is approved by the city is then it goes up on the city website and it serves as our hazard mitigation plan for the next 5 years. And what we hope that it'll do is kind of serve as a kind of a framework for future planning in the city, and we'll keep it up to date every year as part of the requirements of that plan. And certainly not to the extent that we've done this year, but every 5 years we'll have to go through this full process again.
Now you have within the City of Nashua had like emergency management training or where you actually have mock trials. Will anything come about through this effort that you've made where you actually will have a mock trial and put into effect just to see it run through of what can happen?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the other significant components of this project, and that'll be what will happen in 2019 is we'll be working with the state of New Hampshire to run an exercise that'll be focused around some sort of a catastrophic incident.
Yes.
And this plan kind of guidelines how we would rebuild, restore, recover after a disaster. And so when there's significant devastation after some sort of a disaster like that, that's the time, that's the opportune time to build it back better. And this will serve as a roadmap for what we would like to prioritize as recovery priorities. This will be something that'll be a substantial project for 2019 because we'll have just as many stakeholders as we had in the planning project actually participate in the exercise. And there'll be a lot of work around planning for the exercise, creating the scenario, and that'll be a substantial project for us in 2019.
And in 2019, will that just cover the City of Nashua or is the greater Nashua community, the surrounding towns?
So it'll actually likely be the greater Nashua area. And the reason for that is part of this project has been to work with the state of New Hampshire, and both the Department of Environmental Services, DES, as well as the State Homeland Security and Emergency Management have sort of been partners with us on the application for the EPA grant funding. They want to ensure that they have a role beyond just the City of Nashua, and they can help to coordinate the efforts of all the communities that would be impacted by some sort of a large-scale disaster like that. So we'll be working with our neighboring communities and state agencies to make this exercise a reality.
Does the airport become involved in all of this also?
The airport would be involved. Pretty much any sort of facility that has an importance to the city would be involved. And when we mean importance, we're talking beyond what we typically think of as important facilities, because as we recognize during this process, things as simple as gas stations and pharmacies and supermarkets are important. So we'll work to incorporate them into this as well.
What's the greatest challenge for you in this whole process?
Well, it's a lot of work.
Yes,
That's the
I can
first thing.
imagine.
And you have so many different players. And one of the things that this project has really taught me is the essential components of project management.
Yes.
You have so many different funding agencies, you have so many different technical assistance partners, and then so many city departments, state agencies, and non-governmental organizations that have to ensure that their input is provided into this.
And effective communication.
Absolutely.
Because you're taking all of that management, but without good communication, nothing happens with it.
And I think part of that communication piece of it is going to also be seen in 2019, where we'll be doing a lot of community outreach to show them how the community members can be more resilient.
What can people look for in seeing that community outreach? What can they expect?
So one of the things that we'll be releasing at the Resilient Nashua Summit is something called the Resilient Nashua Toolkit. And this is an online resource that we're going to put up for any organization. It could be a business, a nonprofit, could be a city department if they really wanted to use this as well.
Individuals?
It could even be individuals. And from start to finish, it talks about how to do a risk assessment, how to develop an emergency plan, how to develop a continuity plan, which is how to prevent disruptions to your business or your organization, how to train your employees or your volunteers, how to exercise your team, and then how to keep it up to date on a regular basis. And so we've curated all of these great resources that have been available for a long time and narrowed it down so that it's simple to use for our Nashua businesses and nonprofits.
That's wonderful.
So that'll be something that people will be able to use starting in December, and with the assistance of our office as well as the police department, the fire department, public health, they'll be able to provide assistance to organizations who are looking to make their business or their nonprofit more resilient.
And in addition to that, you already have on your website information related to emergency management preparedness in order for people to get ready for the upcoming winter or whatever
Absolutely.
else. So they can go right in there and get the list of things they need to have and what they need to do in their homes and businesses to be prepared.
Absolutely. So on our website currently, we have a lot of information focused at the family and the individual level.
Right.
And through some of the previous shows that we've done, we've got great videos that explain all the basics of emergency preparedness. But this brings it almost to the next level, where
Exactly.
now it's businesses and nonprofits who are also an essential part of the community. And so many people rely on them to just stay up and running after a disaster.
So Justin, if we were to summarize the most important information that you would want people to know, what is it?
So I think the number one thing we want them to do is provide input, and they can do that through the CoUrbanize website. And again, that URL is courb.co/resilient. They can go on there and help us to get input for our community plan. And we'll keep that up to date on a regular basis over the next few months to ensure that we're asking all the right questions, but getting as much input as possible from our citizens.
And how will they know that their input will definitely be included? How will they see that?
So it's actually interactive. So if they go on there right now, they'll actually see responses from myself and some of our other team members.
Oh, wow.
So they'll actually know that this is being really included in the discussion, because they'll actually be getting responses from us during the process.
That's very important information for people to know, because sometimes people provide information and they don't know where it goes and
Exactly.
how it will make a difference. So what you're saying is their input will make a difference right away.
Absolutely, it really will, and it's essential for us to look beyond just the city departments to get our input. It's really essential for the citizens to participate as well.
So what else do you want people to know about?
I think the next thing is, for us to get as much participation in the Resilient Nashua Summit as possible.
And that's on December?
December 18th at Riviera University.
And how do they register?
So they'll go to the City of Nashua website, which is nashuanh.gov, and they'll search for Resilient Nashua Summit, and they can get information about how to register for that program.
And that's free to them, and at that summit they will be able to listen to important people speaking about a variety of topics.
Yep.
But will they also be getting feedback and hearing about where you are at this time in this initiative?
They will be. So we'll be doing a presentation specifically at the summit highlighting all the work that's been done so far this year and explaining what's to come in 2019.
Very good. What else do you want them to know?
So I think the other thing that we want to try and do is get their involvement. So if we can get their input, get their participation at the summit, the last thing is get their involvement in our resilience program. So what we hope to do is to get as many folks to participate in the Resilient Nashua Toolkit when it's released in December, get their businesses to become more resilient partners in the community. But also, look at ways that they, as individuals and as family members, can participate in making a more resilient Nashua through, the programs like our community emergency response training or Until Help Arrives. Those things that make them more able to take care of themselves and be less reliant on somebody else to help them during an emergency.
And they can see information about that through the programs on your website.
All on the city's website. If they are looking for citizen emergency preparedness programs, they can easily go to the Nashua website and find out about upcoming trainings, courses, and other offerings that we have.
And they can also search the Health View at youtube.com.
There's lots
so
of
that
videos.
they can see the variety of videos there to help them. So again, just so that we make it clear for people, they can go to what website to give their input as far as it's the hazardous, explain it again, the hazardous things that they're experiencing or know about that you want feedback on?
So they'll go to the website Courbanize, which is courb.co/resilient in order to provide input into our resilience plan.
And if they have any questions, is there anybody that they can go to, or is there a place to ask for further information?
Yeah, so they can easily reach out to our office, the Office of Emergency Management, and
Is there a phone number?
so it would be 603-589-3272.
Let's repeat that.
589-3272.
Okay.
And that phone number will take them directly to me. I'll be happy to find ways to get them involved in the process or
Great.
let them know about upcoming meetings.
This way it will make them feel assured that they have a good understanding as to the result of their input and
Absolutely.
the impact that it makes. So 2019 will be an important year where you'll be updating the community related to what you've accomplished, the plan ahead, and moving forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for all
Thank
that
you,
you
Yvonne.
do. Until next time.